actual real. Brad Garrett, ABC News, crime and terrorism analyst. Explain this new report to us.
McGraw, this was a Pew Research group, interviewed 8,000 police officers and walked away with the following numbers that a vast majority of officers feel like their job is riskier, and now because of these recent shootings, obviously, including Ferguson, 72% were less likely to make stops. In other words, when you see something that you think could be an issue, where officers would normally stop, ask you a number of questions, decide whether there's a safety issue or not. Many of those stops, McGraw, if they're done correctly, stop crime and also seize weapons from people who shouldn't have them. So that's, to me, one of the more troubling statistics in here. They, by and large, think their job is much harder now, and that 93% of them worry about safety every day.
It's pretty unbelievable that more than 3/4 of law enforcement officials say they're reluctant to get out of their car, right? I mean, this is really shocking news, and we're hearing it, but also the bad guys are hearing it as well. So you have to assume that the bad guys are more brazen because they feel like the cops aren't going to go after them as much.
Right, and I totally agree. McGraw, what has to happen here is departments, whether it be St. Louis or someplace else, is the management, your upper management in the police department, have to have both training and convince their guys and gals on the street that you do it correctly, we've got your back. Don't worry about cameras. Cameras are there, but that shouldn't matter if you're doing your job correctly. Everybody knows when it comes to exigent circumstances, people will make mistakes. Now, grievous mistakes are a different story. So they've got to work through that, which we both know is not a short-term venture.
This is a chilling report. We see crime and murder rampant in Chicago. We see it spiking here in the city of St. Louis and other places. Even though crime is down overall, there are some pretty awful crime stories out there. How much of these two stories are correlated between like a Chicago and these police officers feeling like they would much rather stay in the car?
I think there's probably a direct correlation. Obviously, it's a bigger issue in bigger departments because bigger departments have, more of these issues, more shootings, more car stops, etc. I think that it's sort of a combination of, I just mentioned what maybe the police management could do. I mean, the community also has to be supportive of the police, by and large, that, look, we know this is a tough job. And by the way, in this study, most of these cops think that we don't get what they do, that we don't understand how dangerous, difficult, and frustrating it is. So that's another thing I think we need to overcome, of educating people. Look, this is not an easy job. You think that anybody can jump out there and do it correctly, and the answer to that is just wrong.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult job to do, and it takes a lot of skill sets, verbally, physically, emotionally, to pull it off.
Well, and we're talking about, Michael Devlin, Ferguson and whatever else. We're also talking about when you and I get pulled over for speeding or going through a red light, right? How many times do we pull over and we say to the police officer, why don't you go try and find some real crime, right? So we, even though they're doing their job giving us a ticket because we were speeding, we still snap at them. That's a part of that as well.
Yeah. The study said that, over 50% of the cops said that somebody had said something nice to them, but also 50 to 60% said somebody had said something not nice to them in the 30 days prior to the survey. So, you're going to get it both ways. I think your example is accurate that, they get yelled at for stuff. It's like, well, they didn't run the red light, you did.
Right.
So, it's a very, very complex situation.
I go back to that police officer I heard on 60 Minutes say, because a lot of people are like, wait a minute, you're a police officer, this is your job. And the police officers kind of are saying, look, if we get a 911 call, we'll go to that 911 call. But if we're driving down the street and we see somebody or whatever else, we tend to say, well, wait a minute, let's back off. Because if we go and shake this guy down, find out what's going on, do a little more investigation, we cannot win. We no matter what we do with that guy who looks like trouble, we lose. So we would rather stay in the car and everyone else avoids the trouble.
Right. And that's where the combination of both the community and law enforcement management have to come together saying, we're with you on this, just do it correctly.
Brad Garrett, ABC News crime and terrorism analyst, a new report saying the Ferguson effect is real and having a real effect on policing around the country. Brad Garrett, thanks for checking in.
Take care, McGraw.
627.